This is Tyne Teas, Tuesday night, sex, drugs and rock and roll, the last of the series of When We Were Kids at 7:30. Now, ahead of the Premiership, the weekend news.
Violence on Afghan border as police fire on refugees. Allied forces hit Taliban front line in new operation. And the world's stars pay tribute to New York's heroes.
From ITN, the ITV Weekend News with Shuri Ghosh.
Good evening. There were violent scenes on Afghanistan's border with Pakistan today as Pakistani police used force to try to stop refugees from entering their country. It happened at a point where 9,000 people had crossed the border in the last 2 days alone. The violence came as American planes began bombing frontline Taliban targets, as they've frequently been urged to do by rebel Northern Alliance forces. Here's our diplomatic editor, Robert Moore.
On Afghanistan's borders, there have been chaotic scenes today. Here at a frontier post with Pakistan, scuffles and running battles broke out as police tried to keep the Afghan refugees from pouring across the border. Aid organisations say thousands more are trapped in no man's land and are pleading for Afghanistan's neighbours to throw open their borders as an urgent humanitarian gesture. Close to the Taliban city of Jalalabad, families have been walking through the hills, seeking refuge, heading across high mountain passes before winter blizzards make escape impossible. That flow of refugees comes as military action continues relentlessly, day and night. Reports suggest that American air power is now targeting Taliban frontline positions near Kabul. Strikes that would greatly assist efforts by the opposition Northern Alliance to advance on the capital. The US strategy is perhaps becoming clearer. Airstrikes around the capital combined with dramatic commando raids, like the one launched yesterday on targets near Kandahar. It puts mounting pressure on the Taliban regime, who face attack from the air and from the ground, at times and in places chosen by the Pentagon. Amid reports the son of the Taliban leader Mullah Omar died in a bombing raid, American leaders insist that where possible they will try and capture and not kill Osama bin Laden and other key suspects.
If it's a defensive situation, then bullets will fly. But if we can capture somebody, then we'll do that.
Diplomats are also worrying about the consequences of fighting through Ramadan, the Muslim holy month that is now less than 4 weeks away.
We have to be respectful of that very, very significant religious period, but at the same time we also have to make sure we pursue our campaign. So I will yield to my Pentagon colleagues as to what might be required.
Meanwhile, the British government is refusing to comment on reports the Pentagon is requesting the entire SAS regiment is deployed to Afghanistan. But the Prime Minister is understood to have said that all requests will be met where possible. The War Cabinet will be meeting here early tomorrow morning, and Downing Street is making clear that Britain's military contribution is likely to expand rapidly. Tonight, discussions are underway with the Americans about what's being called the overt deployment of British ground troops. Robert Moore, ITN, Downing Street.
Earlier, I spoke to our correspondent, Julian Mannion, who's in Afghanistan, not far from the Taliban front line. I asked him what he knew about the latest bombing.
Well, these attacks happened just before dark when 2 US jets made a series of 4 strikes against Taliban positions just behind their front line. According to the Northern Alliance troops we're with, these were directed at the Taliban command center and reserve positions. And then shortly after dark, we saw the lights of Taliban vehicles active in that area, and we received radio messages from frontline Northern Alliance positions that these vehicles were actually picking up Taliban casualties and taking them away.
And what's the significance of this strategy?
Well, the significance is that this is, of course, what the Northern Alliance, or part of what the Northern Alliance has been calling for. They've been pointing out for days that the American airstrikes, well, they've targeted Kabul and other cities, haven't been hitting, at least in this area, the front line. They've also been quoting defectors, that we've spoken to defectors who've said the Taliban troops have got into the habit of coming out of Kabul in the evenings to seek refuge at the front line in the belief they wouldn't be bombed there. Now, that period of calm from their point of view may now be over, but what is not yet clear is whether this is the start of a series of really major attacks, major air attacks, that would actually open up the road to Kabul for the Northern Alliance. So far, the strikes that have happened won't yet have that effect.
Julian Mannion in Afghanistan, thank you. A very different kind of fighting has been going on near the key northern town of Mazar-e-Sharif. The first pictures from there show opposition forces using horses as they take on the Taliban. From Afghanistan, here's our senior correspondent, Mark Austin.
It is like a horseback cavalry charge from history, but it is happening now in the war for Afghanistan. These are fighters under the command of Afghan warlord General Rashid Dostum. They're apparently attacking Taliban positions around the much-prized northern town of Mazar-e-Sharif. The pictures were shot by one of Dostum's fighters during a week of heavy clashes outside the town. Latest reports say there's stalemate on the front line. With the Americans now bombing Taliban forward positions, Dostum's forces are spearheading the anti-Taliban assault on the ground. They claim 500 Taliban fighters and 5 commanders have changed sides, claims which cannot be independently verified. Mazar-e-Sharif and its airport are crucial. They are the gateway into Afghanistan from the north, essential for both military and humanitarian supply routes. Talking to his commanders, Dostum calls the Taliban an enemy of humanity. Today, the Taliban admitted executing at least 5 people in Mazar who they say were American spies. From northeastern Afghanistan, generals allied to Dostum monitor by phone the progress of the battle for Mazar. The fall of Mazar-e-Sharif would be a major boost not only for these Northern Alliance forces, but also perhaps for the Americans and the British, a strategic foothold in northern Afghanistan for any future ground troop operation they may be planning. More American bombing of Kabul today and more pictures of civilian casualties. At least 2 houses were destroyed, killing, according to the Taliban, up to 8 people, including 4 children. The Taliban now says hundreds of civilians have died in the bombing campaign and thousands are injured. Mark Austin, ITN, Afghanistan.
Health officials in Washington confirmed today that a 3rd postal worker has tested positive for anthrax infection. He's said to be gravely ill after breathing in the bacteria, one of the most dangerous ways of being infected. He's being closely monitored in hospital. Other post office employees are being screened and prescribed antibiotics. A total of 9 people have now been infected. In other news, police are tonight still questioning a man after a standoff on the M4 ended peacefully. 17 miles of the motorway were closed as police negotiated with a father who was said to have taken his 2-year-old son hostage. The child, who was checked over by doctors, is in the care of social workers. 4 Palestinians, including a 10-year-old girl, were killed today as Israel continued its occupation of Palestinian areas, including the historic town of Bethlehem. The assault began 3 days ago in retaliation for the assassination of an Israeli cabinet minister. John Irvine reports.
The Israeli army has been consolidating its position inside Bethlehem. The invasion of the biblical town is part of the most widespread assault against the Palestinians since fighting broke out. And the Palestinians have been trying to fight back. Here, a group of them leave a homemade booby trap, which they later detonated as an Israeli armoured personnel carrier approached. The explosion did little damage, but led to a fierce gun battle. The Palestinians are paying a heavy price. This was the funeral of a 19-year-old youth hit by a stray bullet a short distance from the Church of the Nativity. Today, the Pope decried the killing and expressed his sadness at such events happening so close to the traditional birthplace of Christ. Tonight, Israeli tanks are holding strategic positions inside 5 Palestinian-ruled towns on the West Bank. Israel denies its intention is to topple Yasser Arafat, but there's little doubt his administration is in disarray. John Irvine, ITN, Jerusalem.
Football now. Another Premiership manager paid the price for his team's poor performance today when Stuart Gray was sacked as the manager of Southampton after their disastrous start to the season. The final straw was yesterday's 2-0 defeat at the hands of West Ham. Gray's successor is expected to be Gordon Strachan, himself sacked by relegated Coventry last month. There were 3 games today in the English Premiership. Highlights are on ITV1 immediately after this bulletin. So if you don't want to know the scores, look away now. And there were 2 games in the Scottish Premier League. Hibernian beat Hearts 2-1 and Rangers beat St Johnstone 2-0. Finally, Sir Paul McCartney led an all-star lineup of British and American talent at a fundraising concert in New York last night. They were performing for families of the victims of the September 11th terrorist attacks. Here's Nina Nanar.
Sir Paul McCartney had helped organise the concert and gather an extraordinary lineup of the world's biggest rock stars. Money raised from the 5-hour concert through phone donations, ticket sales and TV broadcasts will go to charities to benefit the victims of New York's terrorist attacks. As David Bowie sang, some of the heroes of the city watched and waved. The concert was a tribute to the many who took part in the huge rescue operation. One boy also paid his own tribute.
My father was lost in the September 11th accidents. He was a firefighter, and Tom McCann, and I love him.
Hi, I'm Susan Sarandon. I'm John Cusack.
Hollywood's fundraising telethon was last month, but they were back on stage this weekend. And by the finale, many rescue workers were on stage too, joining Sir Paul McCartney in the song he'd written specially for their city. Nina Nanar, ITN.
And that's it for now. We're back tomorrow, but for now, from all the ITV Weekend News team, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening. It really has been pouring down across many parts of Britain today. We've had around 2 inches of rain in some places. We're following it on the weather radar screens through the day. The heavier rain started off in the southeast and has been spreading north and west through the day. Remember, the brighter colours pick out where the heavier downpours have been. It's going to continue to move north and west across the rest of northern England and Scotland overnight tonight. The southwest predominantly dry for the time being, but more rain coming your way later. So for the rest of tonight, still a lot of rain around, though it will become lighter and more patchy and mostly confined to the north overnight. Mist and fog in the low cloud and fog patches forming elsewhere too, so it really is a tricky night to be out on the roads. Mist and fog and lots of standing water on the roads too. And by the end of the night, that next patch of showery rain will be coming into the far southwest. So tomorrow is set to get off to a grey, grim start really. Mist and fog patches, drizzle around to allow extra time for your journey on the roads in the morning. It is going to improve though for most of us. The rain in the north will gradually slip away. Central areas after that foggy start will see bright spells, but there will be more showery rain in the southwest. Temperatures only around 14 or 15, so it sums up to a pretty mixed picture. Good night.
Powergen, bringing the essentials to life.